to tell a little story about this cover. This was our 20th anniversary of the Mustang cover in April 1984. Scott was just talking about that, the first production Mustang. And we had a reader who was an employee at the Henry Ford Museum. And he sent a letter one day or called me, I don't remember which, and said, by the way, the first production Mustang, 100001, is in the basement at Henry Ford Museum. And nobody really knew that. And then I found out about Ford was coming out with the 20th anniversary Mustang. So I said, it would be really cool to have both those cars on the cover. So I called up Paul Pruce, who was head of Ford PR at the time, and said, well, I think we can set up this cover shot. And he didn't even know that the first Mustang was at Henry Ford Museum, right under their nose. They didn't even know the car was there. It's been about 19 years, I think, since he had gotten the car back and had just stored it. So then he called me back, and he said, he'd made some phone calls and said, yeah, I think we can do that. And in fact, we'll even take the picture for you at our studio. And I found out why later. They ended up using our cover shoot to do the photography for the 20th anniversary Mustang promotional press releases. So if you see the pictures with the two cars together, that came from a Mustang Monthly cover shoot. Anybody remember what this is? Well, do you remember when, I guess it was the mid-'80s, we started hearing the rumors that Ford was going to go to a front-wheel drive Mustang, four-cylinder based on a Mazda? Well, I was doing the magazine, one of my interim times doing the magazine, and Auto Week had just come out with a big story about the front-wheel drive Mustang. And I'll give credit to a reader, I don't remember his name now, but a reader had found out about it, and he sent in a letter and said, we ought to start a write-in campaign. So I said, bingo, there's my editorial for this month. And I wrote an editorial about the front-wheel drive Mustang shouldn't happen, shouldn't do that. Take the Mustang name away if you're going to do that. But why don't we just write to Ford World Headquarters? And Donald Peterson was the president, and I put his address in there and said, write a letter, postcard, just put no Mazda Mustang. And later on, I guess it was around 94 when the 94 Mustang came out, that John Coletti, who was involved in that project, told me that 30,000 letters came to Ford World Headquarters, and it was one thing that convinced them that they needed to look into keeping the Mustang going. And of course, that car became the Probe, which I think lasted 10 years. And it's no longer with us. This was truly a defining moment. Scott Drake bought an ad. So you probably can't see that from there, but Scott, there's battery boxes are $14, door handles $25, seal plates $28. It's about the same as today, isn't it?
Yeah, it hasn't kept up with inflation.
Right, yeah.
Prices out there.
Scott says we need to raise prices, okay? Let's back away from that ad. This was kind of a defining moment for the magazine because for so many years we were 65, 73. And we would touch on new cars when they came out, SVOs, the new GT and all of that. But for this issue, which was October 93, we added a 5-liter power section. So we started really covering the 5-liter and what was going on there and the modifications that people were making to them. And ever since, we've covered all Mustangs. And in fact, to this day, we're the only magazine that covers all Mustangs all the time, from 65 right up to the new car. We still have our focus on the older cars, but that was kind of a turning point in the magazine's history. These aren't necessarily defining moments, but one of the things I really enjoy about working at Mustang Monthly is the cars that turn up. People seem to, when they find something, they give us a yell. And this one, a friend of mine, Rich Downing, worked at Classic Design Concepts for my friend George Hussman. And he was actually on his way to Birmingham for the 45th anniversary show when his brother-in-law called him from Pennsylvania and said, I just found this old Mustang in my dad's barn. My dad collects all these strange old cars. And he said, I was just looking at the serial number, and it's 100004. And my dad says he thinks the car was used on the Magic Skyway at the World's Fair in '64. And turns out that was exactly right. He had bought the car from Ford's used car lot in 1965, knowing that it was an early production car, and used it as a family car for 2 or 3 years, and then put it away. And it's actually one of the cars that people rode in at the World's Fair in '64. And that's just the way it looked. I don't think it's been restored yet. His name was Dr. John Mansell. And I imagine he still has it, and probably still looks like that today. This one I heard from this lady, and she bought this 64.5 Mustang on April 15th, 1964. She had just gotten her first job, just gotten out of college, got a job, went to the Ford dealer, didn't know anything about the Mustang, just wanted to buy a convertible. And the dealer said, let's go in the back here. I want to show you something, and pull the cover off this Mustang convertible. She bought it on the spot, and I guess the dealer wasn't supposed to let it go, but she picked it up the next day, and April 16th, 1964, she had the only Mustang on the highway in Chicago. Even more amazing, she still owns it today. And I have to believe, at least to my knowledge, that would give her the record as the longest ownership of a Mustang. I think we need to get her to the 50th anniversary somehow with that car. This was a fun story to do. You've probably all heard the story of Tasca Ford's KR8, where Bob Tasca didn't like Ford's performance offerings in '67, '68, so he took this 390 Mustang and hopped it up with parts off the shelf, 427 heads and Holley carburetor and that sort of thing. And Hot Rod Magazine came and did a story on the car, and kind of got people wanting Ford to do a little more, because the 390 wasn't anything to keep up with GTOs and Hemi Roadrunners. So this was the actual car that he used. As far as I know, it's maybe the only picture that exists of the car. We did a story with Bob Tasca Jr. About the car, and Bob Tasca had this, Jr., and he remembered the car. He remembered driving the car. In fact, that was him in the back lot of Tasca Ford trying to do a burnout. And somebody took the picture. But that car, he remembers riding with his dad to Detroit so the Ford engineers could look at the engine and see what they had done. And that led directly to the Cobra Jet Mustang. And finally, there's this one. Guy calls me out of the blue one day and says he had this strange '71 Mustang. And he said it had a 351 Cleveland 2-barrel, but it had a 9-inch rear end, 4-speed. I suggested that he get in touch with Kevin Marty, and he did. And Kevin Marty emailed him right back and said, call me. And what it turned out to be, Kevin had a whole package of invoices on this car. It is probably the only '71 Boss 302 that was ever built. It was built for very early in production, before they made the decision to kill the Boss 302. It was going out to a auto show here in Las Vegas, and Ford needed it for photography. We think that it was used for photography out here as a Boss 302, and then they went back in and retouched the photograph so it would say 351 later on. But he didn't know what he had until Kevin Marty came up with it. And the strangest thing he showed me when I went to photograph it, they had the labels on the doors back those with the VIN on it. This particular car had like 5 different labels under it. You could take he had taken a hairdryer and heated it up so he could peel them up, and the first one had the G for Boss 302. So that was kind of a fascinating car. And I guess finally, our next defining moment will be an article we got coming out in February. We're doing a story on Scott and profiling how he got started in the business and how he used to bring parts home and sleep with them on the bedside next to him. Suzanne, I think, used to make fun of him for that, but still does. Okay. So that's it for me. I appreciate being able to do this, and we'll see you guys later.